People have been having a lot of positive experiences in their dreams in the House of Silence. And the figure of circle has been appearing constantly in the experiences of these people. And a person who slept there had a dream in which there was a circle of beings whose bodies were made of light, and they spoke a language that they did not understand, but at a certain point they understood a sentence. It was when those beings were giving them a suggestion, and the sentence was to grow the original seed, and this person wanted to know what this means. It seems that this sentence means that the person should follow their own intuition, because the true guidance is an intuition, which is not mental, but is a through impulse. The dream in the House of Silence opened a path to the intuitive world. So if the person from now on takes on this impulse they received and remains in silence during their doubts, during the things that they need to clarify, so from their intuition, a very precious indication will come for their lives. Sometimes we are prepared for taking a step, and we need a special impulse in the House of Silence through what it means and the energy available there. It can also work as an impulse during these moments. It's a place where people, when they are in the end of a cycle, they need some impulse to enter a different stage, and this has been happening a lot. That's why during some dreams that people have, we can see it clearly that after the night of sleep, when they are waking up, if they remain quiet and observe themselves, they'll see something changed in themselves. They received an impulse to enter a new stage, but this stage will be lived. But if they notice that they are in a different state, this will be a help for them, because what happens from there on, they will try to interpret it in a different way, because if they're in a different level, they will have conditions to see things in life differently, interpreting things differently. In this energy, we also have a considerable change that we could carry out. This is, we are used during the facts of life. They move with our bodies, with us, and we are moved, touched by the facts of life, and we should leave this stage and see it as a school, as a learning experience. So whatever happens, we will learn something there. So if we look at life, if we look at what happens to learn something, we will end up learning it, and we won't be touched by that. We'll be transformed, but not offended or upset or glad, all these things of common life. You will be really touched, and you'll notice that you have transformed and learned something with what happened. Everything that happens to us teaches us, but if we start to be upset with what happens, we'll lose the opportunity of learning that which was brought to us. And if we see life in this way, when things are repeated, because situations of life are always the same, as you know, but when they repeat, you will see that your reaction is different. You're different in the face of them. You're not involving in the same way, and things are different within you, even though the situations are the same. And here we have a very interesting case. A person spent a while here, and while their stay here, there were a lot of changes within them, soft changes without any reaction, something very calming, and they could realize it through the dreams that they had. So you can see that when we change, when we go through a process and we change our level, our situation, certain involutionary forces or forces of instinct leave us. We don't need to burn them, because when our consciousnesses change its level, their levels, they go away because they no longer find nourishment or interest in us. And this is what happened to this person. They changed their level and certain forces disconnected from them. But before leaving completely, they attacked them. This is very common. They disconnect, but they attack to say goodbye with a lot of rage, sometimes even with hatred. And we can see that this happened here because they had a dream that it was a very angry dog who grabbed their arm and chewed very strongly, with very mad. And when they realized that, they saw they didn't feel any pain and there were no scars. So they noticed that force was left. They could no longer touch them. So it's a sign that the force was solved during their stay here. Usually these forces are represented in this way. They are forces of instinct, those that make people react brutally in an uncontrollable way. So when these forces leave, they're always the last attack, but we don't feel it. And here a person said that if we have inner essence, if we are gods in potential, if we have so many powers and virtues, and why do we always ask for that which we already have instead of working to develop our inner potential? This is very true, because we have a full potential to be revealed, known, and expanded. But we see things as that potential didn't exist. Today, I was observing that 100% of the time we are thinking about common things of life, human people. It's this all day long. Schedule, tasks, people, talks. Anyway, everything that is not anyone's essence. So it's all day long. It's all about things which are not the real. Oh, but it's rice, beans, veggies, clothes, laundry, everything that does not exist from a certain point of consciousness. And these are things that we need to deal with them. We have to deal with all this. But we should see which proportion this takes. What is the proportion of those things within us? If it takes the same proportion as it has outside in the material world, because in the material world it's just that. So we need to see what is the proportion that it takes within us, within our beings, because we could have this all day, but it's not taking our whole being. We could deal with everything, but be on something else, or be in greater proportion to what we can see. For example, people who have spiritual tasks, inner tasks, tasks of developing certain sides of their own beings to inspire others to elevate their spiritual potential and others' spiritual potential and help them to see themselves from within, instead of taking care of this 90, 100 of time, they do the opposite. So you look for a person to do something and they're doing something else, completely absorbed, and you need to aid them to finish and leave that fog so that you can do that other thing. So what this person is saying is very important and very real, and it's up to all of us to examine the proportion that things take for us to really examine these proportions. Because if we forget for a long while about who we are, where we are, and what the goal is, if we forget about this a lot, when we realize we'll be just like other people. And some moments you reach the limit of common life with everyone treating themselves just like in common life. I am saying this as an observation, as a very real observation, and it must be very good for us to verify this, awake in time and change these proportions, really change these things, instead of us requesting everything that we already have. We should invest a lot more our attention on what is our inner potential, because our inner potential, when it's developed, it will change completely, including the situations, people. So we must try to attune to this, so that who knows, the same thing that happened in the dream will happen to us with no cause. So if this must really happen, let's prepare ourselves to be bit, but no one will be hurt, offended, but to really awake to that which they must do, for them to be really awake for that which is the goal of life in the spiritual group. I feel that in a cyclic way, instinctive forces come to disturb me, but instead of ignoring them or saying no to them, I would like to use them in an intelligent way for something evolutionary. How can I do this? Well, this is a very true question, but we must learn how to take evil and transform it into goodness. This is what the hierarchies constantly do here on this planet. So the basic work of the hierarchy is grab everything that happens here, which is involutionary forces of evil, everything that happens here, and transform it into goodness. it's a work of transmutation, and this is learned because you grab something that is out of place, a negative force, an evolutionary force. You do not ignore it in certain cases. You can ignore it in certain cases, but not in others. You grab that force and transform it into something else. And for this, you need to have a lot of patience, courage, strength, faith, because sometimes you're grabbing it in hand and it doesn't seem like it's going to be transformed. You must know where you must get with that work. But the hierarchy is the one who does that, and we are learning. And we could try, but while we don't do this normally, as we don't have this as a way of work, a process of work, the best thing is not to deal with them. And when they show up, you should affirm the opposite. You should deal with the opposite forces, invoke the opposite forces, develop the opposite forces. This is a way of working. I used to have a friend who told their friends when they were making certain questions and wanted answers, I cannot answer this because this is a very hard bread for your teeth. You break your teeth. And she wouldn't answer the questions. So sometimes you must measure first. You must verify first and see how you're going to deal with these forces. And each one will learn this. We must learn. This will be learned. This person wants an effective answer. How can we do that? Listen, when those forces arrive, you must get the pictures of Nicholas Reiter and observe those pictures, Nicholas Reiter pictures, and imagine all those landscapes in your imaginations, those landscapes of other worlds, and you travel through those landscapes, through those contacts that you have. When you realize your trip, when you watched that picture, then you go to another one, they have the album of those pictures, which are very elevated. And when you finish that trip through those places, those colors, those vibrations, these forces can be in a different situation, because they always paint these forces in a transformative way. And you can see how these things are transformed, how these things can be transformed into spiritual effects. This is not written anywhere, but we will find out as we look at those things. Listen, for all needs on this earth there is remedy. On this earth there's nothing that may not have a solution. This is a laboratory planet. This is a planet where there is a lot of suffering, and life is a life of trials. But here there's nothing that may not have a medicine for that. Nothing. So the most extreme things, they all have a remedy, they all have a solution. And we are on this planet to be in the face of these things, finding the way of transforming them, transmuting them, or recreating them. So on this planet there is remedy for everything. We just need to step out from the position of victim, which is the position that almost everyone is in to be a victim of things because of their trials in life. When something happens, instead of breaking yourself, that happens so that you could find the medicine, so you could see the remedy for that. You can't stop knowing all those remedies. They are there to be used. But for you to really help and collaborate with the planet, you must know everything that is there. So there is nothing on this planet that may not have a solution. Everything has a solution. And things are before you so that you can find the way of solving them. That's why they are before you. It's useless to wait to the solve. It will be there until you can find the way to solve that. So that's it. The pictures of Nicholas Ryder are in the side of solutions because on this planet we have things that are in one side and things that are in another side. Music that is in one side and one in the other side. Books that are in one side and many books on the other side. Many people in one side and many people on the other side. And from that on, we have two polarities. So you must see what is the direction you're heading towards. So these pictures are in the side of solutions. A person is asking what they should do with their children because they are a little different children and they don't know how to deal with those children. Children are more advanced than we think. The fact they are advancing does not mean they are very evolved beings yet. They are evolving. They are in a stage of transition of children like we were to a different kind of children. They are in this transition. We see that they are not the new children, those we are all requesting, because new children will have the clear memory of their past lives, so life will be very simple, a lot simpler than it was to all of us. Because being children, they remember their past lives, the contact they have with the other monads in other planets. So those are children in an idea have keeping the past lifetimes, and this life is just one more detail in their lives. And we know they're new because they look at us and say, hey, I met you, you were this and that. Do you remember that? This and that. These are the new children. So really here will be a new education. Today we are in a period of transition. A healthy, intelligent child of today, a positive child of today, will no longer be okay with the treatment we received some years ago, with the kind of education that we had. They're not in the... They are still in the middle of the path. So what can we do to them? We can't demand from them because they don't remember what they know about their past lifetimes. It's not an understanding facts. It's to keep in mind what we have learned, not for that to be deposited in our atoms, also in our memory. So if the person remembers this, they keep in mind what they have understood. They are doing different searches. They are probably much more attentive to their dreams, those that they find in their dreams, those that they see in the dreams, what happens there. No children are like that, and we must be in this world of transition, not acting like this because it's premature, but to be in a position that may help them to take the steps they need. So you can, for example, if they are an awakened person, you can ask that child for them to describe how they imagine that the world should be. How do you imagine that life should be like? How do you imagine that this place should be like? What should we do in that place? But this should be well done so that the child will not start speaking anything. It's necessary for you to externally and innerly desire to learn with that child, not to play school with them and teach little things. You really want to learn with them, so you gather those children for you to learn. How should the world be? How should this country be like? How should the new life be like? How will be the other children born after you be like? Because then they will have the energy of attracting those things. It's not guaranteed that a child will answer these things. We just leave the question, even if they cannot answer and know, they will serve as a magnet for these things to be manifested. It's a purer magnet than us because it's closer to these things than we are, who are already committed with others, that we have committed with such old things. So even if they cannot answer how the new world will be like, how will this place be like? There will be a point of attraction for that. So the more children that are in these conditions, at our care in these conditions, the greater possibility for the new to emerge there. We can't demand these things from anyone. We're just saying that because children also have a lot of pure beings around them. They have a lot of pure contacts which have not dissolved completely. Some children are not fully incarnated. A part of the soul is still in the other planes where they came from. So you should ask these things. If a child starts to manifest their wills, their ideals, their dreams, that should be really listened, taken into account, because it could be things that you can't do. But that which is a dream of possibility, that will be fed, that will be created. Children create this. Children are an instrument of creation of the plan in this sense, because with their dreams, they have the possibility of nourishing this, and this goes down a little towards the material worlds. It's necessary to be careful for us not to transmit to any child that which is our preoccupations, because so we don't need to throw these things on children. We don't need to talk about to children about the problems that we created, because all problems were created by adults. Problems of children are not there yet because they didn't have time to begin creating problems. So problems there are problems of many adults created the problems of having children for themselves. They created that problem for themselves, so they have problems with children because they didn't have to have children. It was not their mission, it's the mission of one or the other, and those who really want to they know how to treat their children, and it's the instrument of growth of their children, and they are their instructors. But this is for few people, because most were not born for this. So as we're not procreating, we hope that the children who come here, they will love these things. They will not be treated as if it was their house. This is not why we have children here. Children are here for something else. And we must find these directions and dedicate ourselves to this. Because if we're not the ones making these children and they were sent here, we have everything in our hands. They must be free. Do you realize what is necessary so that the work can work? We need a comprehension of the subject. It's not about dad, mom, my little brother. It's not about this here. If this starts to enter in the work of children, and if this penetrates, it's better to close the work with children, because little by little family problems will infiltrate karmic situations. Goodbye. So we would have to keep these things very present, because this is a very important moment to have children here, and it's good that the whole group may have a connection with this work, for the whole group to have conditions to collaborate in this work and giving these children the best they can receive. But for this, it would be necessary to not be afraid of changing. Our impulses of dealing with children in the astral plane are like malice, malice made of sugar cane. It's something very sticky and very sweet. These are the best cases of people who deal with children, and we must deal with children with the air, not with malice or water. Water means emotion. And children are there keeping that which they have to be manifested. We have to deal with the air. We must be aired with no specific programs. We must have a goal. The basic goal, which should be the same goal of the inner self of that child. It's through this that the bridges will be carried out. And it's really necessary for us to ask for help and to be really very far from knowing that we know something of dealing with these beings, because these beings give us a lot of surprises. When we think that we're dealing with something, you'd see you dealing with another one. So we must be very free and liberated from concepts and learning with a child, learning with the facts, paying attention at what resonates. If you want to really learn, go through a person you've never seen. And if you do not take that into account, maybe you will lose the opportunity of listening. We should be in these to also deal with us, one another, and people. The hierarchies of instruction have this work of instruction, this part of children, and teaching. Teaching is a very terrestrial word, very concrete, and instruction is better. Education is for these schools here, but instruction is something free. It's something about all planes, all levels. Instruction is that which... Who will be the teachers? We can't judge them. The instruction is that we must follow it. And there are spiritual hierarchies on earth to take care of instruction. And before we fall asleep, or before us dedicating those moments to our withdrawal and silence, we can imagine ourselves completely involved in these hierarchies of instruction, because these hierarchies are like a mantle of protection. Things are not worse in the field of learning experience because of this field of so we can see ourselves as if it was a tunic, and you are withdrawn. Within this, also imagine with a devotional force. Of you really learning how to be elevated. This is devotion towards instruction. It's not enough to just be around this mantle of this hierarchy, but you need to reaffirm your devotion. Because then we'll enter vibration. The vibration will be developed because this imaginary mantle that we create, it actually happens. There is something here. So if you do devotional work if you connect with that, if you say that I need to get there. We must do that work. You will be in a different vibration, emanating something else. The child will feel that immediately. The adult can not notice it, but the child has more conditions of perceiving that. And what the child receives is vibration, personal vibration. So that gives you a different. The child will notice, be welcoming in that which. Do you realize this is not personal? It's not the person getting involved into something. That which comes from the height and is really instruction will be absorbed by the child, and from there on, things that are much more real and correct will start happening. And with the establishment of these practices, you will see that daily life with a child instruction, this will take place very simply and naturally, but it starts happening when we are in these. The formulas do not work anymore, but we have a point here. The more we understand something and know about something, the more our responsibility grows. So if you knew something, and if you think that it's you, so that we shouldn't find people upset because they have more responsibilities, or because they acquired a responsibility that according to them they don't have conditions of developing. This is very common. A great part of people go through this crisis. Become responsible. Now how will I do that work? How will I remain in that task? I'm not capable. Well, responsibility is not about reproducing this. When it's truly accepted and absorbed, it's joy. So those who feel like running away, they think they're responsible, but they're not. They don't have qualities for being responsible for these things. When you really notice and become responsible, you don't have to worry. There is no danger for you to be there's no way you can do that activity and be depressed, because those who take on responsibilities from the head to the feet, spirit, body, and soul. What they will feel is a great joy. Whatever happens, there's a great joy. That nothing can diminish that joy. It won't happen that a person will be suffocated with responsibility. This is about people who do not have roots and base. We need responsibilities to know fully responsible and not half responsible or one and a fourth responsible, but we must be fully responsible. This is what that joy comes from. Don't be afraid of that responsibility. I work with beings, the work with beings that are not corrupted, but for beings who are not yet corrupted. This energy is missed. You can see children coloring in the books, and it doesn't go beyond that. Listen, I don't want to influence anyone or to burn coloring books. There is a symbolic story in which Jesus had to give an instruction, so they got a branch and wrote in the sand of the beach, and then the wave came and covered everything. And Jesus just left. You see, instruction is this. It's for you. In the next moment, it's a different. Imagine you're there coloring a book. It's a situation in which we can't draw in the sun because we don't have any beaches here even, but we must live it with a lot of joy, but taking on responsibility, really assuming responsibility. And the instruction will go down, will take place. In spite of everything, instruction is above all this, and we have conditions of communicating with this and allowing this to take place. Here, a person had a very symbolic note. They said, in the last meeting for the studies of Thursday, it was observed that we were on 12 in a number of 12 participants. They're all in feminine bodies. It was also observed a different energy of other studies. At the end, we formed the circle, we recited a mantra, and we finalized. It seems that something very special was imprinted within us. Does this conjuncture have any meaning? Of course it has. You see these things take place. And what we were invoking for children here, that is happening. It's just for us have respect. It's necessary that those 12 beings had in this attitude of respect, introspection, silence. They observed a different energy from other studies. They really learned something, but it all reveals it has a teaching. It was a different kind of learning experience, but things really happen. But they asked the meaning of this number 12 because it was 12, 12. It's about disciples. 12 is the number of disciples. Those who were serving together with Jesus, they were a number of 12. It's very symbolic. And then those who were seeking for inner life, and when 12 appears to symbolically in a clear way, it's because these people are looking inner work, and within them it's already emerging as a value. It's emerging as a responsibility. A responsibility in the face of this inner life, in the face of this that we have within us. And those who answer to this impulse, because it doesn't mean that the 12 will answer equally. Each one will answer in their degree, in their tone, in their way, in their proportion. But as they answer, they will understand with more clarity their own evolutionary path, and they will find strength in the group meetings, in the searches, in this tension that inner life has, and they'll start realizing very clearly their own path. But one will notice more than the other. There's no comparison among people, there's no way of comparing people, but it's the same situation for all. The state of meeting with this path, the situation of finally finding this evolutionary path, this begins. And the disciple that the 12th number is indicated, it's the one who surrenders. If they just look in their aspirant, they're still preparing. But sometimes we can start seeing that path clearly, and we will surrender to that clear. But it's very good that this group is at this point in developing these things. This is why we notice our and right after we will notice the vibration and presence of hierarchies in the presences, hierarchies present, and then in another stage we'll begin having tasks to fulfill. And these hierarchies, they will begin guiding us for us, these things are theoretical, but we start to experience them and live them and participate in them. So it seems like this is a blessed group, and let us keep in mind that this group should remain united and like this, because there's a lot of path ahead. And the world, humanity, needs groups a lot, because it's in group that these things are developed. So may there be a lot of groups like this one.